Those are some loud ones.
Yeah.
Where are you going, Mom? Willie. Cedar and I have been talking about raising turkeys alongside of our fallow deer for at least a couple of years now. And after a little bit of research on the internet, I discovered a local guy had some turkeys for sale that I thought would work perfectly with our situation. Let's trim their wings real quick, the hen's wings real quick. Before I turn the turkeys loose out in the small deer pen, I need to make sure they don't have the ability to jump the fence. Lifts it up a little bit. There you go. Okay, one down. There you go, dude. Pull it out, can you?
Yours are really long.
Some people leave the ends long like that.
She's a little lighter.
And he doesn't fly. He said he's too big. Okay. There we go. All right. Come over towards me more. We're trying to pressure them up to where their water and their food is so they can see where their water is. I'll bet they're thirsty. There we go. They're sure pretty.
Mm-hmm. That white stripe is really cool.
Just recently, I discovered the bourbon red turkey, and I immediately took an interest in it because of my grandfather. He was born and raised in Kentucky. These birds started in Kentucky. I think they were the preferred bird for the Thanksgiving feast up until the 1940s when the commercialized turkeys kind of took over. But again, Cedar and I have been trying to figure out what variety of turkey would be best for our situation. And it just so happened a guy in our community was getting rid of these 5 birds. You can hear that, Tom. I love having turkeys around. I've always been into turkeys. We've raised turkeys before in the past. So we've got 4 hens and 1 tom, and we're going to start the process of come early spring, we're going to start the process of, with an incubator, hatching out the babies, raising them up. They're supposed to taste amazing as well, so I'll probably keep 1 back every year for our Thanksgiving table. Yeah, it kind of seems like this one was another one of these things that Cedar and I agreed on fairly quickly, and it just kind of fell into place. And yeah, I'm into it. I'm really into it. What will happen, I guarantee you what's going to start happening is we're going to start having the wild Miriam's turkeys that I see around from time to time. I bet they start hanging out down here closer to these turkeys. They're really pretty. I'm going to name that Tom after my grandpa. We're going to call it Eddie. I'll find the meanest one of the hens and I'll name it Annie after my grandma. My grandma was a redhead, actually very similar in color. Her hair was very similar in color to the color of the bourbon red. So. So this is all the waste feed that the deer leave behind, just like that down there. When I feed the deer, they only eat the leaves off the alfalfa. They don't eat the stems. And all the stems just basically get pushed off on the ground, and they poop and they pee on them. And this is what it turns into. Now, I want to have an active place where we can compost basically anything that needs to be composted. But I don't think right here as close to the shop where I piled this last year is smart. And I think what I want to do is move everything out into the deer pen. And the other part of the equation is dealing with these chickens that just kind of free range all around our house. They tear up the garden. Even though I fenced the garden off, they still get in there. And they do what chickens do. And I'm tired of stepping on chicken poop. And it's been so warm and so dry that I think I'm ready to make some changes. And the best thing that I can do is have a coop out here right next to where this project truck is sitting. I want to have a coop there, a chicken run that opens into the deer pen. But it can't be an opening big enough that a baby deer could get into that chicken coop. So I'm going to have to figure out how best to do that. But what I'm going to do different on this chicken coop and chicken run is I'm going to use the materials that I have around here instead of going and buying dimensional lumber like I always do. I have a lot of leftover posts from when I built the deer pen, and they're lodgepole pine. I think I'm just going to try and use a lot of the stuff that I have around here, but I also need to deal with the leftover feed from last year. And I think what I've decided to do is put the compost bin inside the deer pen, at least for now. And that's where the chickens are going to be. Years ago, I watched a video about how best to get your chickens off of the grains that we buy from the store. And the number one resource is to have a big giant compost pile. And if I pile that compost pile up in the deer pen, closer to where I have a yard hydrant over there, I can wet it down. And as you can see, I didn't do anything to this compost pile other than it just got rained on and snowed on. And it's turned into amazing compost. So I want to have an active compost pile that we can always be using, and that the chickens, more than anything, the chickens can benefit from. And I'm kind of in between projects right now. I'm waiting for the parts for the well to show up, and the weather's still amazing, so I think today's the day. Once I move the deer back down the hill into this small deer pen for winter, the deer go through about 2 bales of hay a day, and all of the stems from the alfalfa get left behind and, like I said, pooped and peed on. And now, using my old skid steer, I get to clean it up. So rather than using the Roundup Ready scratch grains that we buy from the feed store, in a best case scenario, the chickens and the turkeys now would have the ability to free range and eat what they naturally would in the wild. And having a huge compost pile that they can scratch through and find all the natural protein they want is the best first step that I can come up with. The long-term plan is to only use this lower deer pen for the deer in the winter time, so I'm going to have a pile like this every spring that I have to do something with. And as long as we garden and we have chickens and turkeys, this compost pile will go to good use. I wish you could smell the smell of this stuff. It is gnarly. Gnarly does not do it justice. The smell is a very sour, very gross smell, but it smells like something is fermenting and breaking down. From where I turn off the pavement onto the dirt road that goes up to our house is a little over 3 miles, but it's about an 800-foot climb in elevation. And I wouldn't say this is the heaviest load that I've towed with my bump side diesel, but it's heavy enough. Cedar's been asking me for a while to take care of a few small projects around the house, and again, because the weather's so good, we're going to get it done. I've said it before and I'll say it again, but I don't know if another woman would put up with my long-term projects the way that my beautiful wife does. So anytime she asks me to make a minor improvement around the house, I know it's probably overdue and I should get it done. So Cedar has been asking me for a long time to do something with the bark that we put out here in front of the house probably 2 or 3 years ago. And
It always just ends up on the porch and ends up out in the grass. And now that we have the chickens under control, now it's the dogs that are making a mess out here. And we're always out here, and so it's just something that we need a little different system.
The front porch, with all the projects that I have going on, it seems like the house is the last, and the shop are the last things that I think about. We have some friends coming up. We're probably going to do something with a bunch of friends and family for Thanksgiving. I know it bothers Cedar, so I know I need to take some of this stuff more seriously. So what we're going to try and do is have 3 little spots out here in front of the porch where your tulips that you planted like 4 years ago, 5 years ago, where the tulips can still come up. But in between, there's going to be this big chunky gravel that's too big for the dogs to move around, too big if the chickens do get in there, too big for the chickens to move around. And hopefully it's more permanent. Even as the snow comes off the roof, the gravel's big enough where it shouldn't go too far.
And we're also going to have to get some other bulbs to plant, because I probably get 3 or 4 tulips, but not enough for this little section that I want. So I never get rid of any rocks, because in my mind, there's always a place around here to use some rocks. So I had to spend some money on that gravel. I went to town, and actually where our son works, I picked up a load of gravel, picked up 3 yards. We'll see if it's enough. But we're going to try and reuse some of the mulch, and then try and use this gravel and try and just make it look really cute. So. And then we'll have to deal with the black tarp that keeps coming up too.
The black plastic. But we're still going to put more black plastic down before we put the gravel down. But once the gravel's down, the black plastic shouldn't be a factor anymore. Yeah. So. We've been talking about adding gravel to this little section out in front of the porch here for at least a few years, and I hope the dogs understand that they need to leave the mulch alone. I spent about $150 on the gravel, and that's about the only expense associated with this project. All the little boulders came from around the place, and the black plastic was left over from another job. And the end result should be my wife with a big smile on her face, and our house should look better. And that's a win where I come from. Lately, almost every Sunday afternoon, Cedar and myself and the kids, when they come up for Sunday dinner, and the dogs end up out here on the front porch because the weather's been so nice, and this is one of my absolute favorite things to do. Just give me a guitar and get out of the way. Again, my old Bobcat 853 skid steer saves the day. Now, this is the only house that Cedar and I have ever owned where we're thinking about as long-term as you can get. There is no plan to sell the place and move on to something else, so everything that we do around here, we try to think about how it's going to hold up with the snow and the weather, and ultimately with the dogs. The gravel has already made a huge improvement, but once we wash it off, the colors should come to the surface and it should look beautiful. Ruby, are you kidding me? That's a bad dog, That literally took 5 minutes to happen. I had enough gravel left over where I thought I would go across the back of the house and also lay down enough gravel to keep the mud from splashing up on the tin like it's done for the last few years, and to again also make my wife happy. I've said this before and I'll probably say it again, but it seems like it's the details that I struggle with, and I know it's the details that make Cedar smile the most. So at some point in my life, I'll figure out how to manage these details.
Ruby, was that you? Did you do that?
Now that I've got that project finished up for Cedar, I need to get the firewood done. Using my old skid steer and my old rock trailer, I've got one more load of firewood that needs to be stacked to get us ready for winter. Before I get too much more big stuff added to this pile here, I wanted to get the little stuff moved over by the back door. I love the way Cedar has decorated our back porch, but having the firewood right here is accessible for her and the kids to use if I'm not around. It takes somewhere between 2 and 3 cords of maple hardwood to keep my family warm through the winter on an average year. But I like having a little bit extra stacked up just to be safe. I think this pile, when I'm completely finished with it, should be somewhere right around 3 cords. This little rock trailer has turned out to be quite a handy little trailer. Now you can see by the tanks sitting in the background that this was a couple of weeks ago, but normally this time of year would already be muddy and cold enough that we would be into our firewood. I'm a broken record when it comes to firewood and our wood stove. There is no more comfortable heat that comes off the wood stove, especially from the hardwood maple that we use to heat it. On those cold winter mornings when the kids are getting ready for school and the dogs are moving around, they most certainly appreciate that wood. Willie sees some cows going up the road and he thinks it's time to go to work, but even Willie appreciates this hardwood maple on a cold winter morning. Come on, Willie. Let's go, buddy. Thanks for watching, you guys. Be safe out there, and we'll see you soon.